What's up everybody, Planet here on Bent Dice. Today we're going to be discussing how to make a memorable NPC. So I'd like to start off with, do you need your NPCs to be memorable? Now, everyone wants a memorable NPC, and there should be a few of them in each campaign. But if all of your NPCs are memorable, then are any of them memorable? You know, it goes along with the whole concept of for darkness to exist, you need light. For light to exist, you need darkness. For happiness to exist, you need sadness. Things like that. So, if all of your NPCs are memorable, then none of them are memorable. Because they're all the same amount of memorable. That being said, we're going to get into it. How does an NPC become memorable? Because you can't really create an NPC to be memorable. They usually just become memorable because of a few different characteristics they have, and those are the characteristics that we're gonna look at today. So the first one is interesting voice and personality. If your NPC doesn't have an interesting voice or personality, then the players are never really gonna remember them anyway. If it's just some guy on the side of the street, sounds exactly like you, the DM, then it's gonna just, go out of their mind really quickly. It was just an NPC that was there. They interacted with them in some way and then left. And they'll never see them again, right? But if you give a character an interesting voice, such as something with a nasally or higher pitched voice, so something along the lines of, ah, yes, the players are a lot more likely to remember who that person was just because of the way their voice was different. The same thing goes with personalities. If you have someone that's just a normal, boring person, or someone, who's just living a life, right? You don't really think of them as exciting or anything like that. Whereas a good example of this is going to be Gilmore from the Critical Role series. By the way, they're great. Check them out if you want to. I'll leave a link in the description for Critical Role on their playlist on YouTube. But Gilmore is essentially just a flamboyant shopkeeper. And the reason he's so memorable is because he's very flamboyant and he has this relationship with one of the players. And so the two of them interacting gives the meaning behind Gilmore more so than his voice does. So you need one of two things. You need either an interesting voice or an interesting personality. The next thing you're going to need for a memorable NPC is going to be the quirks that they have. So these are going to be things like flaws or just small minor things. So let's say every time that the NPC says the word manage, they scratch their nose, right? It's very small. It doesn't have any meaning on their character as a whole, but it gives them a sense of realism. It gives them a sense of oh yeah, that's an actual person. They have actual traits, Just like when people stand up to talk in public, usually they touch their face a lot, or they move their arms around because they don't really know what to do with them. And so if you give NPCs those kind of traits, then they seem a lot more human, they seem a lot more memorable, they seem a lot more realistic. And ultimately what you're going for when creating an NPC is realism, but memorability is kind of a different thing. Another really important thing to have a memorable NPC is to have them appear many times. So there's a saying that distance grows your fondness for someone, right? You've probably heard that. It goes along with long distance relationships and things like that. But it's actually been proven by research that the more you interact with something, the more you tend to like that thing. So that could be like developing a likeness for sushi. The more you eat it, the more you're going to like it. You might start out not liking sushi, but if you keep eating it and eating it, you're going to eventually end up liking sushi. So the more the NPC is relevant to your players, the more they interact with them, the more they see them, the more they're going to like them. And that also goes along with the fact that they're going to think that the NPC is important because they're showing up many, many times. Finally, I'd like to reinforce the fact that you really want to make sure that they stick out. They're not just, the people that you'd find on the street in the middle of the day. They don't have a very common voice. They don't have a very common personality. If you give the NPCs common traits, it's very unlikely that they're going to be as memorable as they can be. Whereas if you give them extreme traits, very end of the spectrum traits, they're a lot more likely to be memorable. That goes along with humanity. You also want to make sure that your NPCs are very human-like, even if they aren't humans. Because that is what we as humans relate to, is we relate to humanity. So even if you're playing like a bear, for instance, you want to give it sort of a humanistic caricature. Make sure that it has human-like uh, representation, even though it might not be a human. Alright, that's going to be it for me today. If you liked the video, go ahead and leave a like and subscribe. And if you had any memorable NPCs in any of your campaigns in the past, go ahead and leave a comment below. I'd like to hear about them. I love hearing about other people's D&D stories. It always makes me laugh, especially memorable NPCs. They're usually pretty good. So, that's going to be it for me today, guys. Hope you have a good one.